Hi everyone, welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, Christmas is coming. I'm not sure if you're all prepared, but I'm certainly not. It seems to get earlier every year. The shops started with their Christmas decorations in October, which I think is a little bit early. So I'm leaving my decorations to the last moment. When I was a child, the Christmas tree often went up on Christmas Eve. So I'm thinking that maybe this year I'll leave the Christmas decorations as long as possible. Here in the UK, especially when I was growing up, to put up your Christmas tree, some people believed 12 days before and 12 days after was the correct time. Others preferred to have that moment on Christmas Eve to make it part of the Christmas ceremony, which was very nice. Personally, I don't mind when I put the tree up, but as the media and the UK goes crazy about Christmas, I think I just want to slow down my pace a little bit. Speaking of slowing down the pace, today is the 10th of December, and on this day, in 1936, there was a very, very big event. That was one of our kings. He was Edward VIII. He formally resigned in order to marry his girlfriend, who was an American divorced commoner called Wallis Simpson. After he left, of course, the crown moved and passed to his brother, our late Queen's father, George VI. Now, the interesting thing about Edward VIII is he became king automatically upon the death of his father, but while they were busy trying to arrange the formal ceremonies, of course, they had to consider that he wanted to marry this American common lady who was divorced. The church objected, the government objected, and the people at large also objected. So they quickly asked him to resign, and he did, and his abdication speech was broadcast on the radio. It's in the archives. It's very, very famous. I'm sure you can find it just by Googling. Of course, after he resigned, he very quickly was shunted away, moved out of the picture over to France, where he spent the rest of his life in privacy with his wife, Wallis Simpson. I remember her, and she only died, I think, in the 1990s. I mean, he died in, I think, 1972. She died much later. She was very famous because she started a trend in jewellery. You know those little brooches that women wear in the UK? They look like little salamanders or lizards, very small encrusted diamonds that people wear. It's something that she started. She started wearing those, and they became very, very popular. I can't remember if she actually designed them or not, but anyway, that's what she was famous for. She had these little brooches which looked like salamanders or lizards, covered in diamonds or precious stones. Yeah, so it was all happening on this day in 1936. It was before the war, and he had been linked to many other ladies. So I think the establishment was a bit worried about him anyway. about him becoming king. So the crown passed to George VI, his brother, who really didn't want to become king. In fact, according to some sources, the wife of George VI, she became queen, of course, she had a problem with this, and she said that she would have married had she known that one day she was going to become queen. And then, of course, the crown passed down to Queen Elizabeth, that you know, our late queen, and then her son, King Charles. So Edward VIII, the man who resigned, that was King Charles's grandfather's brother. I suppose in those days, the royals were really a big deal. I mean, these days, when they get divorced, when they do things, who cares? I mean, we've just seen Prince Andrew and the very sad story of his association with Jeffrey Epstein. That's something that the media is going crazy about. But the royals are no longer relevant in our lives. It's just like watching a soap opera, a drama, you know. It doesn't really have any feeling of reality. They're so far removed from us. I don't know even if they have a future. But it's very interesting to look back at history when they were indeed very powerful. According to Wikipedia, and I'm not sure if you rely on this for information, but it says here that Edward VIII's womanizing and reckless behavior during the 1920s and 30s was very worrying for the Prime Minister, Stanley Baldwin. Of course, in those days, he wasn't king. He only became king, I think, for a matter of weeks or months because of the death of his father. And he was never crowned. The coronation never took place. But as a prince, because he was, of course, Prince of Wales, it says here, the king was disappointed by his son's failure to settle down in life, disgusted by his affairs with married women, and reluctant to see him inherit the crown. Apparently, the father, this is Edward VIII's father, said, after I am dead, the boy will ruin himself within 12 months. And it seems that the father actually wanted his other son, George VI, to become king anyway. So it all turned out for the best, according to what I'm reading here. Even when I was growing up, there was still a lot of talk about this abdication because it happened during the life of my grandparents. They often spoke about it. It was still quite real for them, and that made it real for me. So it doesn't feel like it's so far away in the history. Well, the woman that he gave up the crown for, her name was Wallis Simpson. She'd been married twice before. Simpson had divorced her first husband, who was a US Navy officer, in the 1920s. And then her second husband, Ernest Simpson, was a British-American businessman. So she and, well, the Prince of Wales, as he was then, before he became king, became lovers. And that's how it started. And it weakened his relationship with his father. Although Wallis Simpson was allowed into Buckingham Palace in 1935, apparently. I'm not quite sure how it all worked, but yes. So it was in 1936 that he expressed his desire to marry, and that kicked off the whole procedure to ensure that he would never become king. His abdication speech is very famous. You can find it on Google. He gave a radio broadcast formally giving up the throne so he could marry his wife. Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting compared to today's standard. So you can find that on Google. It's really something which was a big moment here in the UK. And that was on this day in 1936. Obviously, he abdicated shortly before his official crowning, but he was still king because of the death of his father. So he was king for a very short time, and they started to produce coins ready to be used in the UK, and they also produced postage stamps. Those are still around. I think they're probably worth quite a bit of money now, but you do still sometimes come across them. Also, the post boxes, if you've ever posted a letter here in the UK, you'll know that all of our post boxes, the red ones outside the post office, they all have the initials of some of the kings and queens. There's one here that says VR for Victorian reigns. The more modern ones say ER, Elizabeth reigns. And some of them were produced with ER, Edward reigns. So yeah, there are still traces of him around, even though he was only king for a very short time. It's really interesting, of course, his relationship with the royals wasn't a good one. But before his death in 1972, they had started visiting each other again. So they obviously had forgiven him for not going forward with his ceremony to become king officially. And they seem to have found peace, because after he died, it was assumed that he would be buried in America with the family of his wife. Wallis Simpson's father was in Baltimore, so they wanted to bury him there, but the royals brought him back. He's actually buried in the Royal Mausoleum, where Queen Victoria and Prince Albert are. And the wife was buried with him near where the grave of Queen Victoria is as well. It's an area called Frogmore, which is within the Windsor Castle estate. So it's interesting. She finally got buried with them in the royal grounds. So they obviously had made their peace. And Wallis Simpson died of dementia. It says here in 1986. I actually thought it was later, because I remember the reports of her dying, but I was sure it was a little bit later than that. But anyway, I'm looking at a picture of his grave here. It says, His Royal Highness Prince Edward Albert Christian George Andrew Patrick David, Duke of Windsor, born 23rd of June 1894, died 28th of May 1972, King Edward the 8th from 20th of January to the 11th of December 1936. Oh, very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Nice headstone he has there. But royals now, I mean, who cares, really? Who cares what they do? I don't think they have the same respect and prestige as they had all those years ago. I suppose the world was a different place back then, very different from what we know today. Right, I'm off today to try and do some Christmas shopping. So hopefully the Storm Bram will have passed by lunchtime, and I'm just going to the local shopping centre to see what I can pick up. I'll also need to start planning Christmas dinner, so I'll be cooking online, and you can see me doing that as well. So that's it from me for now. See you soon. Bye.